Hello, I'm doing this video about a few things which I think are quite significant with modern Satanism. One of these relates back to Anton LaVey's work and the Satanic Bible, and another thing goes somewhat beyond that. But on the subject of the Satanic Bible, I think I've said in the past that I appreciate Anton LaVey's work, and I think it was very significant. And I actually consider it to be a sort of popularizing extension of Aleister Crowley's work in many ways. And in a lot of ways, the Satanic Bible appears to be a kind of pulp version of the Book of the Law in a way, but very much as a little pill that can be slipped into popular culture, I think, by Anton. So you can see it's a populist book. It's a I don't know if you want to say dumbed down version of the Book of the Law. It's made very stripped down and usable, providing you actually want to engage with it and use it, and then build from it, and then go forward from there. And I do think it has some a genuinely satanic element to it, and it is very significant, even if it has limitations. And for anybody that's interested, I would highly recommend Michael Aquino's revision of the Satanic Bible, which he has published this year. It's just called the Revised Satanic Bible. It's really good, and it's very interesting, and it does it fills in things with a greater seriousness, and it fleshes out some things while it manages to actually just kind of, it manages to weed out some of the more dated and purely sensational aspects of the original. So anyway, there is that. What I really find useful from engaging in the Satanic Bible is its approach to morality, which I think is actually rather important. It does put the case for individual sovereignty and moral autonomy, and it does have a really good destructive energy in the sense of applying it to collective morality. And that's a very helpful thing. It's a very good thing. I think it's something that any adult needs to go through, in a sense. You need to be able to bring yourself back to your essential ethical questions and what they mean to you. And what the Satanic Bible does is it kind of basically burns down the whole house and then says, well, look, what do you want to do here? What makes sense to you? What do you build your morality from? What do you build your ethical questions from? And I think that's a very helpful thing. In fact, I don't agree with him on all of the way that he couches things. I mean, one of the things which I think is lacking from the Satanic Bible, though it does have the it does have the essentially thelemic idea of the autonomy and the sovereignty of the individual, which is a very thelemic idea. It's a very thelemic basis. But what he doesn't actually put in there is the consequences of that individual sovereignty actually belonging to everybody, which is in fact it's a logical corollary to the whole idea of individual sovereignty. You know, and as the Book of the Law put it, every man and every woman is a star. So, however, what does come through, which is, I think, tremendously useful in the Satanic Bible, is the sense of a non-interference policy, essentially. So you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you, we get on with our own things. That's tremendously useful, especially nowadays when so many people seem to be driven into identification with political tribes and one thing and another, and collectives and collective identity and identity politics. So Satanism is really an antidote to this as far as I'm concerned. It's because you can't mix these things really with individuality being the basis of things. And you can't go around interfering in other people's lives either. That's not really the thing either. It's much more a question of, I do my thing, you do your thing, we stay out of each other's way, or we interact as suits us both, etc., etc. Anyway, I think that's a very, very important thing that comes from the Satanic Bible. If you work it through, if you think about it, if you take it seriously. And I do believe it comes originally from Thelema, which is no surprise to me, because the Book of the Law is, I consider, a satanic document. It was dictated by Aiwas, who Crowley considered to be Satan, the devil, Set, Shaitan. So this makes complete sense to me, and I do accord the Satanic Bible an importance and a seriousness, but of course it is limited by its scope, its particular cultural mission at the time, and things like that. But the Satanic Bible is important, I think. Yeah, it's not the beginning of Satanism. I'm sorry, but it just isn't. Even if you only want to carry it back to Crowley, you're still predating it and taking it back to 1904. And truthfully, Satanism, whether you use the term Satanism or not, but the actual content has been there before, and Satan has been there, and the devil has been there. So I'm sorry, it wasn't created in 1966 or what have you. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the position of Satanists in relation to right-hand path cosmology and mysticism. Yeah, because right-hand path cosmology tends to give you this idea that, well, you have a creator God, an all-powerful creator God, an all-omniscient, or what have you, and that we spring from this and we return to it. So we're all going back to dissolution in the ocean of God, basically. And of course, the sort of right-hand path ecumenical modern extension of that is that all paths are different paths leading up the mountain to the same source, and everyone's God is the same God ultimately. And that's actually a propaganda. It's a spiritual propaganda on the part of the right-hand path. This is how they see the world, and I would say this is not how Satanists see the world. You know, and I don't think Satanists see the world as Satan just being a replacement for the Creator God. You know, it's not just a question of mistaken identity. for my money, in Satanism, we actually don't need a creator god. I think the world is extraordinary enough as it is. I tend to go more towards things like the creation myths of the Norse, for instance, where the world simply comes from ice and fire, or what have you. It doesn't come from a creator god. They talk about human beings being created, but that may well refer to our human consciousness. The whole idea of needing a creator god is, I think, sort of fallacious. It's something which we come up with from within time, from within our particular limited awareness, and so we posit a creator. That's what we sort of understand. Or if you're sort of like a neo-pagan, then you think of it in terms of birth, and there's an ultimate mother or what have you. Yeah. These are all time-bound conceptions. They're all within our limited scope of consciousness, and I don't see any need for modeling a theoretical ultimate upon our time-bound conceptions. So creators, birthers, what have you, I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's needed, and I really don't think it's descriptive of a real thing. It's a story. It's a story which underpins our sense of our own identity. So the aim of mysticism for Satanists would be quite different. It's a different sense of things. We're not all heading for that one ocean that we're all going to disappear into. I think we are looking for relationship and growth and fulfillment and all the things that come from that. And that's not just related or limited to this world. So I think our sense of mysticism is in a sense it's more practical, and it's less theoretical, and it's more experiential. And with that, I would say that spirituality, whereas in monotheism, spirituality very much relates to a moral training, in a sense, and to the regulation of behaviors, and to ultimately dissolution in God. I think for us, spirituality it goes back to its roots, and it is about spirits. It's about the other world. It's about the unseen, and it's about what is beyond death, but it's also about what is the nature of life. And the key to that is our relationship to the spirits, to the demons, to the gods, and to Satan. So to all these things, and that's spirituality, and that makes it a lot more open-ended and a lot more naturalistic, in fact. But that's my take on that. We just don't need a creator god. Once you're outside the realm of time, where is the beginning and where is the end to things? And now, obviously, to see things from that perspective is I don't know how you imagine that directly. One has impressions. There are images. There are all sorts of like experiential metaphors for it. But in any case, I see no need for a creator or a creation in that sense, in the sense of something that happens at a certain time and ends at a certain time in that way. I don't think it really works that way. It's something. It's far more subtle than that. So I don't think we really deal with with the Creator God and the ultimate union and dissolution in the Godhead, etc. So the two things that I would say in this video, which I find significant and far-reaching for me in modern Satanism, are one, the sense of individual sovereignty and moral autonomy, and this being very much individual, not collective, yeah. And the other thing is the freedom from creation, in a sense, the freedom from the mythology of creation, and the experiential nature of our spirituality and mysticism, and the part played in that by communication and interaction with the entities that we deal with. Anyway, that was a bit rambling, but I hope it was of interest to you, and thank you for watching.